Those of you guys that have eBay in the audience, I've gone ahead and set up a special gift for you. In your eBay, it'll automatically scan your purchase history and bid on items that are $5 or less, one per day, in any categories that you've bought items in the past, and so it's going to send it to you. You're welcome.
So what Wendell's talking about is the fact that the eBay has... The eBay?
The eBay.
That's the way the people in Congress say it. We have to look out for the eBay and the internets and the series of tubes and things.
And the Netflix.
The Netflix. Last night I was sitting down to watch a Netflix with my friends.
Yes. Oh.
Derailed already. The train has crashed and now it is on fire. But we are going to do the show on fire, freshly out of a train. So eBay has been compromised. Change your passwords. Now they put this notification online saying, "Hey, we've been compromised. Change your passwords." And then they immediately took it down and said, "So I don't know what happened. I changed my password. Maybe you should change your password too. We'll keep an eye on it." Now we talk about all this, ISP nonsense a lot. And one thing you can do to help speed up your connection and also protect yourself on the internet is get a VPN. So we actually have an exclusive deal right now with private internet access. It's for Memorial Day, so what you can do is click on the description. You're going to save some money. You may have noticed that this price is lower than it normally would be. So for Memorial Day weekend, this is the URL up here on the top. It's just text MemDay sale. Or you can just click on the screen, and it'll take you guys over there. There's also a link in the description. So now it's a pretty good time to get yourself a VPN, and we're trying to help you guys out with some deals here. Now it is time to move right along and talk about Google. There's a ridiculous amount of stuff to talk about Google, and guess what? We are not going to be kissing Google's ass this entire episode, just some in the beginning, okay? So bear with us, everyone who gets angry that you're just...
It's not that Google's not evil, it's that Google is the least evil of all the options we have in America.
They're evil in the ways that make me the happiest, you know? Like, they don't... Yeah, this is for Kane. Sorry, right?
Skynet, something Skynet.
No, it's a secret. He'll see it later. I've had to do it real quick. All right. Larry Page has listed 5 things that Google will conquer in the future. So we're going to go through these and kind of have a chit chat about each one of them. And so he says they're going to be conquering same-day delivery shopping. It's similar to what Amazon has been talking about with their drone delivery service, except Google is not going to have their own store. They're going to basically allow you to search all the nearby stores, and they're already deploying something like this in San Francisco. And I don't believe they're using drones just yet, but I guess the future that they see is one where anywhere you are, you can log on and order something from a local store, whether it's food or a lawn chair, and then have it delivered to your door, whether it's by bus or by van or by drone. So that's something they want to conquer. I don't know. Are you excited about that one?
You know, honestly, the most surprising thing in this list was not really the healthcare stuff, and it was not really, all the stuff on the list is like, we've got to live forever, and we've got to do this, we got to do shipping, and we're going to go head-to-head with Amazon. To me, that the head-to-head with Amazon thing was not even the most surprising. The 5 billion people who are not online. What's surprising here is not what they said, it's what they didn't say. So if you look at that, and you really look at the 5 billion people that are not online, they're not going to have desktop computers. They're probably not going to have tablets. They're probably going to have mobile phones. It's going to be like the $100 or the $50 Android smartphone. And so they've already sort of taken over the universe there. But in terms of content delivery and accessibility, when you're talking about third world, what is right now third world, but is, let's call, developing nations, data speeds, the entire internet is not built for that. And so there could be a whole separate sort of internet that pops up that's almost like, a text-based internet or a textual gopher thing, or maybe it'll be a bandwidth revolution. I mean, the bandwidth is so bad in America, maybe they can roll that out in a country that doesn't have any infrastructure in just a matter of years because it's so bad here. But I suspect that it's probably going to be some new renaissance of applications and things like that that are built for people that don't have desktop computers and tablets, that the only thing they have is the mobile phone. So it's going to be interesting to see how Google actually capitalizes on that.
5 billion is a huge number, especially when you consider the fact that right now there's only 2 billion people online. So that's a lot of people to add, and that's going to really shift, I guess, the way things work right now, because, I mean, I think people at least in the USA and the UK and some other countries are consuming most of their content on mobile devices. And like you just said, that's going to add a lot of mobile devices. Now, they've already talked about some different ways to deploy this, like their weather balloons and stuff like that, being like these balloons. They look like weather balloons. They float around and they just broadcast wireless internet. They really want to blanket the globe in internet, because wherever the internet is, they're making money.
The other thing that is perhaps a bit scary is that if Google is going to be the gatekeeper to this experience, given that a lot of these people are going to have single access devices, meaning that there's only one device this class of people use to get on the internet, this 5 billion people, Google's going to have a lot of control. Temptation to do no evil, I think, might be too much for them.
Yeah, and you know what? They're also moving into a place where it's going to be very difficult to do no evil, because now they are the world's most valuable brand. And traditionally, valuable brands tend to, I guess...
not live up to their founding ideals? Hint,
yeah.
Apple.
Yeah, Apple. I mean, Apple's really, they've dropped 20% in the last year. Now they're only worth $148 billion only. But
here's a 30-second screenplay for an amateur cinematographist out there. Go to the mall and just get lots of candid shots of people entering and leaving the Apple store, and try to get some really vapid conversations inside the Apple store. Shoot that from a bunch of different angles, and then call up Steve Wozniak and see if you can get him to play the role of that Indian that's crying when the people litter, except it can be Steve Wozniak crying while, seeing that other kind of stuff.
We'll call it...
It's like Steve Wozniak witnesses a vapid conversation inside the Apple store and then cries.
I'll buy tickets to that.
It'll go viral.
Just to see Steve Wozniak do that'd be amazing. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Google in relationship to the internet. Now, Google has said that they are not going to be charging for peering, and they don't have fast lanes. So they came out with a blog article. I'm going to bring up the blog article here. There we go. Open it right up. And in this blog article, they this blog article is kind of a slap in the face to Verizon and Comcast and Time Warner and possibly even AT&T and some other companies. But it's really just like a slap in the face to all these companies who are preparing data caps and preparing to, charge extra money for content to pass through a fast lane. Basically, these companies that are going to be discriminating as far as different packets go. So in their article here, they have no plans to do that. And they also, in this blog, they said that they are allowing different companies like Netflix and Facebook to put servers in their own facilities. They're not going to be charging these companies any extra money for power. Google's going to cover the cost of the power for all these servers. The only thing they have to pay for is the servers themselves. And Google is really offsetting the cost of the power by installing massive amounts of solar panels. There's solar arrays everywhere. So Google really wants to have all their data centers running completely on solar power or some form of renewable energy. So all they're really going to be charging them for is, just a little bit of money to install it. And they're like, listen, guys, we've got plenty of bandwidth. Why would we discriminate? And there's plenty of bandwidth out there. So the only reason we would discriminate is to achieve some sort of unfair advantage or, pull money out of something. But really, it's bad for their customers. If you read the entire thing, they're saying that they feel like that's kind of like, abusing their customers or not giving their customers the product they were promised. So that is where I see that Google understands what's going on right now. And they are doing, in my opinion, the right thing, even if their bottom line is they want to harvest all of our data.
Well,
so that's always the edge there.
This is interesting because you don't even look at it for what's being said, because too much today, everybody has an opinion. And it doesn't matter, yours and my opinion, if we're just faces in a crowd, we're not experts, our opinions don't matter. And too often, people have an opinion, and they're entitled to their opinion, but the opinion should not carry really any weight behind it. Like there was a CNBC poll that was like 25% of Americans don't believe in climate change, and it's like, what does that have to do with anything? 25% of Americans not believing in climate change. It's like, do 25% of Americans believe in Santa Claus? Because, does that make it any more real? I mean, come on. So here we've got a situation where people that know what they're doing are looking at it and saying, no, we're not going to do that. And there's no subterfuge here. There's no misleading. Like, too often, everybody twists around the meaning of what the words actually mean and what stuff actually means in terms of language, like at a very low level. Nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with anything. They're just misleading the reality of the situation. And so here we have Google that's saying, well, not only do we have a lot of bandwidth, but we let them put equipment in our data centers, because if the equipment's in the data centers, then the data is closer to the customer. The data doesn't have to travel as far, and it costs everybody less money. Comcast was not willing to do that. Netflix was perfectly willing to pay for leasing physical space and electricity and the whole 9 yards in Comcast data centers, which is the thing to do that makes sense. As a network administrator, as like a pragmatic thing, if you want to look at the open and free democratic market, or the unregulated marketplace as an efficient system for delivering the best possible value, which is why we have a free market. I mean, if you're arguing free market, you're arguing for a modicum of efficiency. Then the efficiency is to put the data close to the customer, and that's what Google is saying. Google is it's a very efficient thing to say. It's a very efficient thing to do, and so it's very interesting that that's validated by by a company that has probably one of the largest networks in the world, saying this is how we would run things. And there's not a commercial interest there in terms of misleading the situation in order to charge more dollars and to get to the bottom of the situation. There's no argument about it. There's no conflation.
Before we move on, there's one thing in this Verge article that I want to point out, and because I'm going to use this later on during the Rant 30 segment. There is plenty of capacity. That's a quote there. There is plenty of capacity. So just remember that for later. And now let's go ahead and talk about some other things that Google has going on. They're planning on making free Wi-Fi available pretty much wherever you go. And what they're doing is they're partnering with a lot of different businesses, large and small, and they're basically giving them free Wi-Fi hotspots. And the idea really is, with Google, to get as many people online as possible. And that's something that I think really helps them, because they benefit from more people being online, and they benefit from people using the service. So therefore they want more connectivity, more speed, because the more people use it, the more money they make. It's really kind of scary how smart their whole scheme really is in the big picture.
Now, I've been in Kansas City for a few days, and I will tell you that the Google Fiber and the Google Wi-Fi is crazy fast.
Yeah. All right, how about this? Let's talk about something negative here, something scary. Some people are saying that Google may start serving ads on refrigerators, cars, and the Nest. They bought the Nest. It's the smart thermostat type thing. People are worried about
thermostat.
This. Yeah, ads on the thermostat. So the guys from Nest, and also Google as well, they released a statement saying, no, there's going to be no ads on your thermostat. But, hold on a second. I've got Agent Beard here. He's got something to say about all this nonsense.
So, ads on your fridge, maybe even on your thermostat. Data harvesting? Well, at least on a hot day, Google's going to plant a nice cold beer, maybe even some schnapps, in your fridge for when you get home. As they collect data realizing you enjoy it, you'll then receive ads for Alcoholics Anonymous. As your data's then passed around every third party imaginable, your healthcare provider's going to deny your benefits, and you'll then soon resort to more self-medication. We see what you're doing, Google. And as long as it's not Miller Lite, I'm game.
So yeah, I think Agent Beard has it right. Everything's going to be talking to everything because Google owns everything. It's ridiculous. And even if they don't own everything, they're freaking ingenious enough to have their software touching everything. And even if you're not using their software, you're using their services. So Google is touching everything you do. That's kind of scary. So they're going to know if it's too hot in my house. They're going to know that I'm craving a tasty beverage. They're going to recommend me a tasty beverage on the front of my refrigerator. And then AA is going to find out.
If Google had only my thermostat data and it was not related to anything else, which I guess is, a pipe dream because that's not going to be the case. But if Google had only my thermostat data, I would actually be impressed with them being able to monetize that and that alone without aggregating it with other things.
I mean, like, this guy needs a cold beer. Come on. And then you walk over to your fridge and it's like, And your fridge is like, boy, is it hot outside. Wouldn't you love a cold one about right now? And can't you see that happening?
I could see that happening, but I don't think it will.
I don't know, man. I'm worried about it. I'm like going to your fridge, and like, later on we're going to talk about this in relationship to the NSA because the health industry is getting involved. The NSA is getting involved with all this health data monitoring stuff. But that's going to be up in just a minute. So we'll come back to this in just a second. All right, I believe that's just about all the Google. Oh, no, it's not all the Google. We've got even more negative Google stuff. Google in Europe, right? So let's preface this right now. In Europe, there's a recent decision in the EU that people have the right to be forgotten, and that means that they can call up. They can. I'm not sure what the process is,
Well,
but basically they can have things about themselves removed from the internet if they
Yes.
want to be forgotten.
And so what does that translate to exactly? And that should translate into people in the EU contacting a website, a newspaper website or whatever, and asking to be removed. And then that newspaper site in the EU would remove the article, and then Google would naturally delist them. However, that's not actually how it's being used.
Now, everyone's contacting Google directly, and they're being like, hey, we don't want any of these search results to show up on our list. And also, the potential for abuse here is beyond ridiculous because now corporations, companies, business people who have done terrible deeds or something like that, they can all say like, hey, when we killed 12 babies and stole $2 million, we have a right to be forgotten. Come on, guys.
Now, there is actually an exception in the law that says that if it's in the public interest, you can keep it. But it's not really super well defined, and does Google want to make the call on that on a case-by-case basis? There are some other conditions, like it's not relevant, and it can be removed if it's not relevant, and it's not in the public interest, and blah, blah, blah. But we've already had a politician send requests to Google to remove links to evidence of wrongdoing while he was in office a few terms in the past. And he's like, well, it's not relevant anymore. It might be in the public interest, or might have at one point been in the public interest, but it is no longer. And it's like, well, nobody wants to pay for a private eye to do a background check on somebody, although, that service is out there. But it is kind of nice to be able to Google politicians and find out how trustworthy they are, because certainly in America, we've seen politicians try to memory hole things where they're like, yeah, I'm totally going to support that on the campaign trail. And then when they're elected, it's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Well, Eric Schmidt, he says that Google should have a right to remember it, and everyone else should have a right to know. Like, this is... Everyone should have a right to know all these things, and he says that they got it right the first time. All the geniuses at Google, they made the search engine. People could look up things about people and find them. And I mean, I guess sort of the underlying thing here is like, listen, if you don't want anything bad about you to show up on the internet, don't do anything bad. But really, let's get to the heart of this. Google wants the right to know because they want the right to harvest all the data that they're going to get from it. That's number one. And number two, they don't want to have to spend the extra money creating algorithms or spending extra dollars on manpower to deal with situations like this. So they have two major incentives to keep all of the data there. So this is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a cluster of WTF right now. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with it.
I could kind of see, like, this is not a black and white issue, because there are
It's
instances.
really complicated.
From the Google standpoint, I think that if it's on the internet, Google ought to be able to index it, and the site where it's hosted should probably be removed in cases like this. Now, obviously, that's not a universal truth. There are situations where that's not completely true. But in this case, where, it's the right for someone to be forgotten, the search engine isn't going to keep the data around in its own database. If it disappears from the internet, it will disappear from the database on the search engine. But you contrast that with like public record searches where, like, somebody's arrested for drinking and driving, or some other embarrassing crime, or, crime that would be looked down upon. If you've paid your debt to society in those cases, your record should probably be expunged after a period of time. And certainly, you can, if you get a felony, I don't know what the equivalent is, but if you get a felony, you can apply for it to be expunged after a certain period of time for certain kinds of felonies. And so you've paid your debt to society is the theory, and someone that's doing a background check or someone that's trying to find out more about you shouldn't be able to see those things. Likewise, if you're young and stupid and you make some mistakes, that should not follow you around for the next 60 years. So I could kind of see where they're coming from. The problem is that it's so open to abuse, and that it's so not necessarily Google's problem because of the search engine aspect. It's just Google's an easy target because they're so large. So I think that someone would actually have to sit down and think about a rational way to address this, instead of it sort of being this terrible mismatch mess that it is now.
I want to know what you guys think. This is such a gray area that there's probably more than one wrong and more than one right answer. And I really am curious. So let us know what you guys think about all this. It's time to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. We are going to be using them for our upcoming store. Right here it is in all of its epic glory. The thing I like about it, it allows me to have multiple users on the back end, so some people can ship some items, some people can ship others, and that allows us to have inventories in different places. So I'll be putting some, like limited edition items on here, shipping them from my place. Wendell's going to be putting some limited edition stuff on there, and the back end is robust enough to handle all this. Now, it's not just a store. Let me show you guys what Squarespace is. Let's say you need a website and need something quick and easy and you want it to look decent. Well, Squarespace allows you to easily create your websites, and the design is all about your content. So for instance here, this page without this picture is not much. This is your content. So I really like design that gets out of the way and allows you to create a site based upon, you. So let's check out a few of the things you can do with this. Really good for photographers and bloggers and that sort of thing, because, it puts your work forward, content forward again. If you have a client, maybe you're making a website for a restaurant or something, and they need quick turnaround time, but they want something that looks nice, you may be able to give them a little bit of a discount because you can quickly put together a site with Squarespace. If you really want to get under the hood, you have CSS control, HTML control, SFTP, and like I said, Git, so you can really get under the hood. There's also some tutorials on here. There's logo generators, so there's a lot you can do with this. It may not be what you need if you need a full-on content management system, but for most websites out there, it will do the job. And like I said, after seeing it, I've decided to use it for our upcoming store. Last but not least, they do have, like I said, the e-commerce package, and you can even tie this in if you're a musician. You can link up your site with Bandcamp, like this here is actually a player from Bandcamp, and then you click buy and it takes you over to Bandcamp, or you can just use their e-commerce package to sell it through their website. So that's Squarespace. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it, and look forward to our website coming very soon, sooner than you think. We've actually got stuff at the printer. We have yet more Google news, and this is about Google Glass. It's not really doing as well as I thought it was going to be doing. There's an article here on Computer World, and it's called Why I'm Sending Back Google Glass, and it lists several different reasons why the author here, Matt Lake, is sending back his Google Glass. And, I brought this up because Kane decided he's going to be selling his Google Glass on eBay. He threw it on eBay this week. He called me. He's like, yeah, man, I'm getting rid of this thing before it's completely worthless. So he doesn't want it. And, there's a lot of different reasons why he doesn't want it. But mainly it was because there's not a lot of support for it right now, not a lot of cool applications. There's not a lot that he can't already do with his cell phone and his smartwatch. And the battery life is completely abysmal. It's always dying. And now I'm going to get into my grievances. My grievances are, well, it's extremely conspicuous. You walk around with this thing, it's like, oh, here comes somebody with glass. So at first it was like, oh, cool, someone with glass. But now for me, it's like, oh, God, somebody with glass is walking up. And everywhere we went at PAX, it was like, man, everybody wanted to touch the glass. Everybody wanted to try on the glass. And I was like, man, we got to go. Just tell everybody to leave glass alone. So it was kind of a nuisance in that sense. But it's just, I don't know. It looks like right now at this point, it's not going to be the next big thing, and there's a lot that needs to be done for either version 2, or they've got to figure out something else. Like magic contact lenses that run off the electrostatic energy of the atmosphere, or that are powered by the electronic impulses in your body. I don't know.
Just a reasonable battery life would probably go a long way.
Oh, yeah, I never even thought of that. See, I'm over here talking about like some weird esoteric form of power that's untapped by man, and you're like, how about a longer battery? And that would work too, yeah. Now that you mention it.
I could see something like the concept of glass is really good. The execution is not there yet as far as technology goes. But, the teardown, there was a teardown on iFixit or somewhere, and the parts in it were like $80. And so I think Google has used a lot of standard off-the-shelf stuff in order to do glass, because the parts really aren't that expensive. They're going to have to pull an Apple and spend billions upon billions of dollars figuring out the technology and then come out with Glass 2.0. And then maybe, just maybe, because I think Glass has been popular enough that Google could say, okay, yeah, this is probably worth the R&D dollars the world may be ready. But I don't know if there are enough techies in the world that are ready for it, but I don't know if society in general is ready for it.
All right, you ready to move on to some other subjects and get off of the whole Google thing? I want to know what you guys think about Google. Just let me know, and you guys feel free to send us hate mail about like, hey, you guys are so positive about Google when Apple is really the Jesus company, or I don't know. Whatever you guys want to send us, I'll read no, I probably won't read it, but send it anyway.
Someone is right now adding a link in the comments to skip the entire Google section of this episode, which is fine.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, just guys, skip to like 22 minutes, okay? Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Senator Leahy for just a minute. Now, the senators from Vermont, you've got Bernie Sanders and you've got Leahy, right? Bernie Sanders he just always seems to be like, he seems so modern. You know, he understands net neutrality. He's always petitioning for the right things. And then you've got Leahy, who's kind of hit and miss. And right now, he's decided to take patent reform off the agenda. And that's going to allow the patent trolls to continue to, I guess, abuse the patent system. And this is kind of strange because the House recently passed a pretty large bill. It was the Innovation Act in December. And having them pass that made it seem like they were going to do a lot more to help the patent owners. But he said, you know, we're taking this off the table right now because it looks like it's going to jeopardize a lot of current patents that are, you know, patent holders already have. But really, it actually doesn't. If you actually look at it, it doesn't. So I'm wondering what's going on here. Why is he doing this? Is some patent troll giving him a ton of money? I don't know. Why would you take this off the agenda? Maybe we could just get rid of patents altogether. How would that make everybody feel? It would make John Carmack happy, wouldn't it?
Well, isn't this the same senator that introduced PIPA?
You know, he's worked on a lot of these things. I'm not sure about PIPA exactly. I don't trust Leahy as far as I could sling a piano because he also works way too closely with the RIAA.
You took home the bronze medal in the Olympic piano slinging contest.
So I could sling the piano farther than most men, but still, that's not very far to trust somebody.
Yeah, he definitely introduced PIPA. So yeah, he's up to something. Isn't that crazy? We've gotten to the point where like everybody has an agenda, and it's like, as a citizen, it's like you can't trust the politicians. The politicians are working against you because they're career politicians and they have their own agenda and they think they know what's best, but because they actually have no real world experience, it's a complete mess.
You know, I feel like you can trust Wyden from Oregon, right? And then you can trust Al Franken, possibly most of the time, hopefully. I think he means well, but doesn't understand everything 100%. But he means well almost all the time. So he doesn't seem as corrupt as most. And then the only one that seems to be like completely incorruptible is Bernie Sanders, man. With his wild hair and everything. He may have some out there socialist ideas that a lot of people don't agree with. But whenever it comes to like issues that matter in our time, like net neutrality and that sort of thing, he's, for my taste, he seems to be on a side that's not taking any money. You know, he just seems to be thinking with his own mind. But that's just my take. Let me know what you guys think of those particular representatives and senators, and also let me know if you guys have some other ideas of, you know, who might be doing a good job. There's a senator or maybe it's a congresswoman from Massachusetts that seems to be doing a hell of a good job too. Elizabeth Warren, maybe, or is that the wrong name? I probably said the wrong name, but I don't know. Anyway, enough of that politics. Let's move on.
On to the FCC, which is just another kind of politics.
Yeah. Wendell, have you seen the time?
Oh my God, it's rant 30. It's about time. I mean, it feels like it's already rant 45, but in fact, it's rant 30.
It's the longest rant 30th. You know what? We need to drive down and find Gene Marks. I'm really angry with this guy right now because he writes for Forbes, and a lot of people rely upon Forbes for, you know, I guess, valuable contributions to the journalistic society. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about now. A lot of people read Forbes and believe everything they say. Forbes advises a lot of people with deep pockets. And then you have idiots like, you know, Gene Marks here, who says net neutrality is a dumb idea. So I think I'm going to break down just a couple things here and try to get through some of his nonsense logic, right? So here's part of his logic about net neutrality. You know, like he's like, all websites right now everything's neutral. They can all get delivered with the same speeds. Well, that's the way it should be, right? And he's like, well, by that idea, how would you like it if a Hyundai cost the same as a BMW, huh? Did you hear what I just said? Did you hear what I just said? Did your mind just split?
I think what he's trying to say is that people should be able to pay for more speed. But I don't disagree with that. People should be able to pay for more speed. But because I'm paying for more speed, I should be able to get the more speed that I paid for as a consumer. So I've got, the Time Warner 50 meg plan, and I've got the Time Warner 10 meg plan. So if I elect to buy the 50 meg plan, I ought to be able to use it. But here I'm not able to use it because Time Warner is throttling traffic to Netflix. And so I'm paying more. That's the BMW versus the Hyundai, but I can't actually collect on it. So the analogy doesn't make sense for those reasons. I mean, if you try to extend it and say, well, BMW should be paying the dealership for carrying the BMWs so that I can buy one, is maybe what you're saying, but that doesn't even make any sense. Why would BMW pay the dealership to carry a car that I might buy? Why would BMW bribe the dealership to do that? The dealership is about finding what customers want, not cutting customers off. And that's probably why cable companies have the lowest customer satisfaction rates in the country.
Yep, and I brought that article up here just to show everybody Comcast and Time Warner are the two most hated companies in America. And if they're in your country as well, they're probably pretty hated as well. There is plenty of capacity right here. Remember that? Well, right here in the article on Forbes, Gene Marks, he keeps saying that capacity is limited. It's a limited thing. Hold on a minute.
So we just learned about Google. Now, this is important. We've said it before, but there's not a lot of weight behind it when we said it before because we're just a couple of guys. Now, I know people that run $100 million plus data centers, and they say it too, but that's hearsay, not really a big deal. Okay, so if you rewind to the Google section that you skipped, Google is saying, well, look, if it is a bandwidth and capacity problem, Netflix can co-locate servers, and then that takes capacity out of the equation. So let's say that the Cincinnati, Ohio area has, 50,000 subscribers. Well, I've got news for you. One 2U rack mount server with a gigabit internet, or with a gigabit Ethernet interface on the ISP's network would be able to serve that customer base, one machine. Now, in reality, Netflix has got a CDN, and, that might be 4 or 5 or 10 machines. But that traffic, if it is serviced by a machine in the CDN, that traffic will never hit the internet. And so any argument about capacity is moot. When you see the ISP turn around and say, oh, the capacity is a problem, we would have to build out capacity, blah, 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 those are lies. And how you know they're lies is that you look at Google, and Google says, yeah, in order for us to operate more efficiently and get the traffic to customers faster, instead of hauling the same, 2 terabyte movie over the internet 5,000 times, we cached it in our data center with the cooperation of Netflix. That way, we don't have to shuttle that same 2,000 megabytes of data all over the world 83,000 times every time somebody wants to watch it. And that's the truth. This lies.
So, Gene, I hope you're watching this right now because you're going to learn something, and that would be very beneficial. You've probably already been paid off by Time Warner and Comcast anyway, but we're going to continue here with a couple more points. Okay, so in this article, you keep mentioning how that these companies, they can make a little bit more money, and then they could use that money to upgrade their infrastructure costs. And then you keep mentioning all these things about how they need to make all this money, but you never take into account the fact that the customers are already paying for the connectivity and they're not getting it. So that's another little problem I have here.
All right, so it says that if there is a merger, there won't be data caps. There will instead be data thresholds. Now, this is that nonsense that we were talking about earlier, where it's like they're redefining what words mean. It's a data threshold. It's not a data cap. It's a data threshold. It's a flexible data consumption plan. Even though you're limited to 300 gigabytes, it's not really a limit. It's a threshold. It's a threshold of when they bill you more or when they throttle your traffic back to nothing so that you can't possibly do anything. This is...
Yes, this is like saying that snake isn't going to bite you. It's just going to hug you with his teeth until you bleed.
To me, I think this is really insulting, and I don't know how else to convey it other than that these people would attempt to couch what they're doing in different terminology in an attempt to soften what they're doing, which is an affront to the intelligence of the person that they're talking to. And it should be taken as such. It should be taken as if they had said, "I'm sorry, you're a moron." That is what they're saying. They're attempting to redefine what they're doing with different words that are in reality a softer connotation than the reality of it. To me, that is no different than them saying, "Oh, you're a moron." So it's just as insulting. Stop.
I'm going to read one more point here. He says, however, if tech companies like Comcast, Verizon, and AT&T, or AT&T and the like are allowed to make a profit and run this critical component of our economy, aren't we putting this responsibility in better hands? Okay, number one, you said if they are allowed to make a profit, they are already making record profits, and they are not reinvesting this into infrastructure, as you said in like a paragraph above that, like, hey, they're just going to take this money and use it to upgrade their infrastructure. No, they're not, dude. They're already not doing that. Beyond the fact that they're already making record profits, we are giving them a ridiculous amount of our tax dollars, and they are not using it to upgrade. They're using it to screw the customers and create monopolies in markets, or I guess it's more of an oligopoly now. You know, it's ridiculous. They're creating all kinds of opolies, okay?
Title II of the or not just Title II, but the 96 Telecommunications Act did away with a lot of federal taxes and federal funds that these companies paid into before 1996. Ostensibly, that money that they saved was to go to upgrade their infrastructure. The infrastructure was never upgraded. They didn't upgrade then. Why would they upgrade now?
So anyway, yeah, Mr. Gene, whatever this guy's name is, I've already forgotten it because it's that unimportant. Gene Marks. Dude, if you were paid off, screw you. If Forbes knows that you're paid off, I hope you get fired. If Forbes was paid off, well, screw Forbes. Because this article it's really shocking to see this on Forbes. And
It's too bad somebody at the NSA can't investigate this guy and tell us what all the dirty laundry is, because clearly there's hanky-panky going on here.
I'm mad about this because it's on Forbes, and a lot of people with a lot of money, maybe even some in older generations who don't exactly understand what's going on, are going to read this and be like, "Oh yeah, free market capitalism. Gene Marks is right." And that's really dangerous. That's dangerous.
I would agree to free market capitalism if we had it exactly as defined in the 96 Telecommunications Act when it was passed, which was the decoupling of infrastructure from services. That means that Time Warner and Comcast could compete for one another for offering services to households over the same coaxial cable delivering service. Hell, you could subscribe to both if you wanted. There would be nothing wrong with that. If you wanted it, AT&T and WorldCom, or you wanted AT&T and I don't know, another telephone company, you could do that because the infrastructure was decoupled from the services provided. That was totally an option. That was a thing they wanted to do in 96. That's why the long distance carriers wanted to get into the local telephone and television service. It just doesn't make any sense. Here's the thing to drive home. So I don't think this was one of the articles, but AT&T bought the satellite company. We mentioned that.
DirecTV, yeah.
Yeah, AT&T bought DirecTV for like $50 billion. AT&T owns more copper than any other company in America. And they are saying right now they have invested so little in their infrastructure that they need a satellite television company to deliver television because the copper is too crappy. That tells you exactly how much money they've invested in their infrastructure, and that is $0.
God, I'm so sad.
I mean, how crazy is it? It's like, we're going to do, you've seen AT&T Uverse. It's like, we're going to do TV over copper. And now it's like, oh, God, that didn't work out. We got to buy a satellite TV company.
Now they're like, we're going to do TV and internet and everything over satellite and 4G. It's fun.
Yeah, enjoy your dial-up plus on your 150-year-old copper wiring.
Let's talk about the NSA, because that's fun, isn't it? Tech companies are still really angry with the NSA. I'm just going to mention this briefly, but there's a lot of tech companies who are still pretty angry about all the revelations that are coming out with the NSA because they've really hurt the American tech industry.
Specifically, the revelations are that the NSA is bugging outgoing equipment, which is going to severely destroy the American economy, because now nobody's going to want to buy Cisco stuff. It's like, if you're an Egyptian dictator and you want to buy networking equipment, it's not going to come from the United States now.
Well, a lot of people said Cisco was, maybe they knew about this, maybe they were cooperating with them, but I can't see how Cisco could cooperate with them other than like maybe they were coerced into it, or maybe they showed up at like the CEO of Cisco's office and said, "Hey, we've got all this data on you. We could turn this public, or you could just let us chip all your devices." But this is really damaging to their business. And like right now, the CEO Chambers here from Cisco released a statement, and he said, "We simply cannot operate this way. Our customers trust us to be able to deliver to their doorsteps products that meet the highest standards of integrity and security." So he sounds worried there. I'm not sure if that's lip service or not, but that if I was in his position, I would be fuming angry, because now everyone's going to see this picture here of some agents bugging a Cisco router, and nobody's going to buy a Cisco router. I'm not going to buy one. Are you going to buy one?
The truth of the situation is that this kind of thing is probably necessary in a global scale to be able to do this type of thing. And the truth of the situation is probably that Cisco knew and probably helped and probably provided documentation on how their products worked to the intelligence community. I mean, think about it. If you ran Cisco and you generally trusted the government to do the right thing, or the intelligence community to do the right thing, and to not, just vacuum up everything and all this insanity that has happened. If you take all of that out of your mind, and somebody in the intelligence community approaches you and says, "Hey, there's a bad guy in a cave, and he keeps buying Cisco 2950s." Yeah, and it's like we really need your help bugging a Cisco 2950 that's headed for this guy. You could save a whole bunch of lives. Totally, you'll do it. That's totally standard issue, part of an intelligence operation. The problem is that it is so wide scale, and it is so broad, and it has become such a monolithic enterprise that it is no longer surgical. It is no longer anything. It is literally Big Brother watching you over your shoulder at all times. And that is the difference. It is not that the technology exists, because the technology has to exist. If we didn't do it, China, Russia, certainly, they would do it. But the difference is that it doesn't have to be in place so that you can spy on any citizen at any time at the drop of a hat. I don't think that's the proper use of this kind of technology.
Let's move on and talk about the biosurveillance. So now some new revelations have come out, and apparently they're monitoring our health. They're monitoring how often we work out. They're monitoring how we eat. And I'm not sure exactly how they're doing these things, but they're trying to create a portrait of each individual's health in this country and possibly in other parts of the world. First off, I'm not sure exactly how that data benefits them, other than the fact that they can share it with maybe the health industry and then cancel your insurance or something like that. There's even some speculation here in the Computer World article that, I don't know, maybe they could, if you went to like order a pizza or something and you're obese or you're overweight, they could say, "Hey, you're not allowed to order that pizza. You can only order a vegetable platter," or something like that. I mean, that seems pretty invasive, but I mean, I don't know what they're doing with this information, but are there any weird things that you see from this?
I don't understand where this is going to go. I mean, if Apple or some other company comes out with a smartwatch that monitors your health and does all this, that, and the other, I don't know that anybody will immediately take any kind of actions from that. It'll probably just go into a database.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. All right, we've talked about this a few different times in the past, but Airbnb, they are the internet service that allows you to go online and see who has an apartment for rent or who has an extra room for rent in their house, and then you can rent that for one day. It's kind of like a hotel service, but the way they maintain safety is you can go on there and see everyone's rating, and everyone who's stayed at a certain person's house says, like, "Oh, our host was great," or "Our host was terrible, they tried to shoot us." So you get to read the reviews and that sort of thing. Anyway, it's really disrupting the industry. And in New York, they've tried to make this illegal. In fact, I think it pretty much is illegal. And now they've gotten to the point where they've actually convinced Airbnb to turn over user data. Now, Airbnb says they're trying to provide data that is somewhat anonymous. But, I mean, still, to me, the bottom line here is that New York and a lot of other places are afraid of these new industries that move things, forward. It's like, hey, that's going to really upset the hotel industry. And the hotel industry in New York is booming. So we can't have something like this come in and upset something that's already there. Let me ask these people, did cars really upset the horse industry? Yeah. Did, I don't know, what's something else that was really, did TV really upset the radio industry? Now there's not a lot of radio drama anymore. You've got Garrison Keillor and a couple other people, and that's about it. But back in the day, you used to listen to all your Superman and everything on radio. So there's always new disruptive technologies. And the correct thing to do is not to use the current laws to stop these new technologies. It's to look at this and be like, oh, well, this is new and this is interesting and this is moving the world forward and this is a good thing and people are still making money and now individuals are making money instead of corporations and we can use this and it's more money circulating in our community. So why don't we make sure that the laws and standards that are already in place work, and if not, let's make sure that they do work. Why don't you guys do that instead of punishing people who try to make $1 or $2 off of renting a spare room for a day? I don't know.
I could, if they're out to protect the public health, I could maybe see, because what if you get into a situation where, the next serial killer is renting out their room on Craigslist and, then they start killing people and that stay there. I mean, Airbnb, it's not Airbnb by itself. I mean, it's Craigslist and a whole bunch of other things, but is that really the thing that they want to stop, or is it really the business thing?
I think it's really the business thing, and you sound like you're being pretty pragmatic about this all. But I mean, you could almost say that same sort of an argument for anything. But if you're trying to be too safe, you'll never do anything except sit in a room all day and like be in a little glass bubble or something, and you'll never do anything. So you have to. I mean, you walk out the door, you're taking a risk. You can't try to prevent everything that's going to happen. And I think that's a lot of times we try to do these things that prevent any possible wrongdoing, and what we end up doing is stifling innovation, hurting local businesses, and hurting local individuals in the long run. There may be, there's been millions of people that have rented rooms on Airbnb. We always use Airbnb when we travel, and maybe there'll be one instance where there's something bad that happens. That doesn't mean that we should throw the entire thing away. So I really don't think that that's what they're doing. I think that really they've got like a lot of hotel owners and that sort of thing breathing down their necks saying, hey, this is money out of our pockets. What are you guys going to do to stop it? And we'll be happy to share our wealth with you once you stop it. That kind of thing. I think that's what's going on.
Certainly there is a lot of evidence that suggests that that's true. And that probably is true. But it really comes down to not even a question of this kind of thing, but will a reasonable person realize the difference between locating a room on Airbnb, getting it from quote unquote some guy, versus getting a hotel room? And I think personally the answer to that question is yes. But at the same time, they are with a straight face making the argument that no, average Joe cannot. And so I have little faith in the public too. So I'm kind of conflicted because it's like, well, yeah, man, I guess maybe people really are that stupid. I don't know.
What the government should just send a team around to everyone's house to wipe the drool off our face and wipe everyone's ass. That's what I feel like sometimes. It's gotten to that point where they should send a team out to do all these things.
That's where they're headed to New York.
We are sniveling idiots. I'm sorry. It's what they think we are. Yeah. All right. This is pretty much the end of the show. I want to mention one more thing. Darkcoin. Go check out Darkcoin. I'm not even going to get into the entire article here, but Darkcoin is very interesting. It may be up on a high point right now, so I wouldn't invest in it just yet, but just go check out Darkcoin. Now that it's news, it's probably old news, but we said it, so it's news.
It's a Bitcoin cryptocurrency thing, but it is more anonymous than Bitcoin. It is designed for more anonymity than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin by itself is really not very anonymous. Now, there have been features that have come out in the last little bit that let you sort of obfuscate your wallet addresses by, taking your transactions and doing stuff with them and sending them out and back in again to sort of obfuscate what's going on. But this is a cryptocurrency designed with that in mind from the beginning.
I think it's a pretty smart cryptocurrency. So anyway, check that one out. And it's really shooting up at an alarming rate, so maybe hesitate for a minute. I don't know. As soon as I say hesitate, it's going to go from $7 to like $40 overnight. But so yeah, just check it out, okay? And there's a bunch of links on the screen. I think they're over here. Are the links over here? No one's listening. Yeah, I think they're over there. Anyway, we'll see you guys in the hardware episode. It's going to be a fun one because there's a lot of fun things to talk about, and it'll be fun. All right, we'll see you guys over there.